Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Earthly Headlines. Today we're going to talk about this giant marble pyramid-shaped island complex arising from the sea, which has been uncovered and revealed the secrets of the ancient Greeks' origins. This is very, very fascinating stuff because it comes out of the Cyclades islands that I talked about in a couple of episodes. And here's a map of Greece here. This is a satellite image of Greece. So you see Athens over here. 125 miles southeast is this island, and it's very interesting because the island itself is has a mountain that when you look at it, especially from the south, it looks like a pyramid coming out of the ocean. Now, why is that important? Why is a pyramid coming out of the ocean so important? Why is it important symbolism to the ancient people? Well, one of the reasons is that just like the flood myth, that it's ubiquitous in almost every significant culture on Earth, like there's a flood story, there's also amongst the ancient civilizations, I'm talking about Egypt, Mesopotamia, Indus Valley, and now the Greeks, they have an origin story that has to do with some sort of mountain or pyramid coming out of the ocean. That is a big symbol of their creation myth. So it's very interesting. And then when you take into account the Athenians and the later Greeks that came a little bit afterward, they talked about Mount Olympus being the Mount Olympus on the mainland being where the gods had their pantheon. Well, it's speculated now that a lot of the mainland Greek culture came from Crete, and before Crete, the island of this archipelago of the Cyclades. Very interesting stuff. And here's Crete down here, just to give you guys a geographic look. And the fact that Egypt, the ancient Egyptians had around this time, there was some evidence of Egyptian influence over Crete. And again, if I zoom out a little bit more, you can see just going by geographic location, it's really not that far. Then it makes sense that this common origin story of the pyramid and all of the symbolism and stuff is a far-reaching, ubiquitous myth, just like the flood. So again, that's what makes this island, this marble pyramid-shaped island complex really interesting. Let's just go right into the article. So, discovering the probable origins of ancient Greece. 125 miles southeast of Athens is the earliest truly monumental complex of buildings ever unearthed anywhere in the Greek world. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on here. So, first of all, the logistics of getting all of the stone and all of this marble into this complex on this pretty small island, called the Skalios, by the way, this island here. A lot of the marble came from the surrounding islands, so it took a lot of manpower and a lot of time and effort to get this done. And not only that, not just to get it to the island, they had to construct this complex. So it's very, very interesting. And then the archaeologists crunched the numbers, and they have a hypothesis of how much time it took, which we'll talk about in a second. So this complex dates back to 4,600 years ago, so around 2600 BC, which is interestingly around the time, the mainstream archaeological timeline anyway, of the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge as well. So it's around this time, this megalithic cultures that we see, it's all within this same time period. So again, that adds even more mystery to what was really going on back then. The site may have been part of the inspiration for a key aspect of Greek religion, the idea that mountaintops were the dwelling places of gods. I mentioned Mount Olympus earlier. The complex is on a mountain peak shaped islet off the coast of the Aegean island of Kyros. I also did a video on Kyros as well, which is also part of the Cyclades archipelago here. And again, this is all of this is basically one giant mountain. So I mentioned before that I think it was the last video actually, that the entire Mediterranean at the peak of the last ice age, obviously the Mediterranean would have been much smaller. Like, for example, here you see Sicily, and you can kind of make it out in the satellite image, was a lot closer than it is to the northern part of Africa, or Tunisia here. The same goes with the Cyclades. So the Cyclades archipelago, what's left of them now above water would have been mountain peaks. Now, 2,600 years ago, I think it looked more or less the same as it does now. But still, I'm just talking about the geography here, and it's very, very interesting that, again, more and more stuff is coming out of here. And I just did a video on this like not even a month ago, so it's very, very interesting stuff. And I'll have the link to it, by the way, in the description. Archaeologists now believe that in order to construct the complex, early Bronze Age Greeks embarked on at least 3,500 maritime voyages. So I mentioned the number crunching earlier. 3,500 maritime voyages to transport between 7,000 and 10,000 tons of shining white marble from one Aegean island to another. So again, these were definitely, not only were they a seafaring people, but seafaring itself was such a huge part of their culture that it's no surprise that they had no issue doing this. I mean, it would have been a lot of work, but they planned it out so well, and they were so successful that this complex is still there to this day. And this is just an insane number of stones here. Each return voyage would have required up to 24 crew members to paddle for around 5 hours. There and back, 5 hours. So again, they're going by how they got these numbers are they're going by the types of boats that they were using at that time period. And again, it's been, even though archaeologists, it was widely accepted amongst archaeologists that these proto-Greeks or these early Greeks were a maritime civilization. Just like what was in the legends of Atlantis. Atlantis was also a maritime civilization. They still underestimated the not only their seafaring capabilities, but how important seafaring really was to their way of life. I mean, it was a staple of how they lived, and even it was an underlying factor in their value system. It is by far the largest prehistoric marine transport operation that has ever come to light anywhere in the world. Julian Whitewright, who's a leading maritime archaeologist, I don't think he's involved in this study, but he's an authority figure in this. He goes on, it demonstrates quite clearly just how important and integral to their culture seafaring was. I just got done talking about it. These early Bronze Age Aegean people. So again, in the early Bronze Age, there's a lot of stuff going on if you watched a bunch of my videos. So it makes sense that there's all kinds of different technology and metallurgy and all these different types of innovations, I guess you could say, also coincide with all the architecture. This it seems like they knew what they were doing, and they were directed in some sort of organized manner, which again hints at a larger, whatever it is, a bureaucracy or some sort of complex organized civilization that oversaw these operations. It wasn't just some people who were just worshiping some sort of god. There was a lot of thought and effort put into this, and there's very few reasons that a group of people would even agree to a decades-long project like this. So again, a decades-long project implies a lot of achievements and a lot of innovation and a lot of progress in this ancient culture. And it spreads not only the Cyclades, but it stretches all the way through Egypt, Mesopotamia, and into the Indus Valley over here. So again, what is this network? What is this network of ideas and culture and values that spans this part of the world? Why are they so parallel? Is it just simply parallel thinking, or were there an exchange of some sort going on? And it seems to be that there was an exchange of some sort going on. The voyages, totaling around 45,000 miles, allowed the architects to construct what is thought to have been a huge religious sanctuary consisting of up to 60 marble buildings. which were constructed specifically to glisten in the sun. Now, this sounds very familiar to the pyramids in Giza, because they were once clad like covered in marble, white marble as well, and again it would have glistened in the sun. And why would they do that if it weren't some sort of sacred site accepted by the entire population? So a thing like that, again, would, the fact that that we know it to this day, 4,600 years later, allegedly 4,600 years later, is just a testament to how far and widespread that their belief system was, and that they held, especially the pyramids at Giza, in such high regard that even word of mouth, assuming they didn't have the internet back then, word of mouth alone, and everybody still knew about it. So it just must have looked amazing back then. What's more, the architects terraformed the pyramid-shaped island mini mountain known as Daskalio, which is again this place here. It was terraformed. So that's how far their expertise in architecture goes. Not only did they know how to build these monuments and these types of buildings to a very, very a concise degree. It wasn't sloppy at all. It seems like they had it down to a science. They were able to manipulate the earth around it to accommodate their buildings. So again, that to this day it's really hard. Find a go through the yellow pages and look for a landscaper and show me someone who could replicate something like this. Even not even to this degree. I mean, just in your backyard, it's tough to find a landscaper. So I mean, these guys almost 5,000 years ago had it down. So how were they able to get to that level of achievement that strongly rivals what's capable today? Let alone oversee a huge complex project like this. Is just mind-boggling. These terraces were 6-meter wide, and they've been built specifically to accommodate all the buildings. The summit itself was not initially built on, but instead had a small sacred open area where offerings were deposited. So these investigations suggest that these very early Greeks were organizationally, technically, and politically much more advanced than previously thought. Politically, that's very, very interesting as well, and that's been long suspected for a long time. It's just that now it's starting to become talked about, and without being attacked, it's a safe thing to discuss within archaeology now, and just mainstream science in general. It's only more detailed examination of the resultant data over the past 12 months that has revealed the true scale of the complex. So they knew about this place for a few years now, but the past year they made the most headway, and that's because again they progressed to a more detailed phase of their investigation of the area. So again, a lot can happen in a year. So maybe this time next year there'll be even more stuff. The transport logistics and construction work associated with it. The remarkable nature of the site does fit into a much more widely dispersed series of monumental construction traditions. I mentioned that earlier. Built within 100 years of Stonehenge, the pyramids at Giza, the great cities of the Indus Valley, and the Mesopotamian kingdom. So all of this was going on very close to each other, very close in time to each other. Again, that just adds to the mystery, right? So it's kind of hard to think that this all happened independently of each other. It just, they're so tied closely together, their architecture and their values. They must have come from a similar origin, or some sort of common ancestry, or maybe just some sort of common origin that must have happened, because it's just, these are too many coincidences that they're discovering. These early traditions and Western European traditions were probably the result of a common stimulus, namely the spread and intensification of early metal usage. That's among it. The mercantile, cultural, and political changes that process triggered. So, yeah, something like metallurgy is a huge factor for sure. But again, why did they all use metallurgy at around the same time? Again, there's a lot of questions here. 7,000 to 10,000 tons of white marble needed for the project were quarried in the southeastern part of Naxos, a large island around 6.5 miles northwest. So I think Naxos is right here. Yeah, this big one here. So this is 6.5 miles here from Naxos to Dascalio. Very interesting stuff. So the return from there and back, it would have been around 13 miles. So again, it takes like 5 hours or so, probably more. Of 24 a group of 24 men to go there and back. It takes about 5 hours, I think, or 5 hours one way. It didn't specify. The prehistoric Aegean project engineers then had to create the mountainside terraces. I mentioned that earlier. Some of which were 2-story buildings up to 10 meters long. The entire complex was constructed according to a set plan of buildings of very similar design. So it is thought that the entire island sanctuary was constructed between 20 to 40 years. So this conceivably could have taken place under the reign of one person if it was a monarchy of some sort. But it's really within one lifetime, well within one lifetime. So again, this is very, very interesting. The speed and the accuracy of how they carried out this entire project. Again, the existence of this place suggests that there was a strong and stable political entity involved, potentially based on Kiros or even Naxos itself. Again, it's very interesting. A stable political entity. That could be a lot of things, guys. That could be a lot of things. Some people, some of the fringiest people out there might even say it was the gods themselves, and other people who are closer to Earth, so to speak, might think it was just some sort of government or some country, some island nation that maybe a loose conglomeration of traders and maybe a more libertarian type society was going on. Who knows? The stable political entity, all we know is that something like that must have existed for this to happen. The island would have been visible from many miles away as a gleaming white pyramid-shaped mini mountain rising out of the sea. So again, this is the origin myth I was talking about. The place definitely was selected as a religious site in preference to other much higher, more impressive, and potentially more accessible mountains that did not have that shape. So again, they deliberately went here. There could have been, there's a ton of mountains here, guys. There could have been a ton of suitable locations to do this, but they specifically chose this small island here, mainly because of its shape. It's a very peculiar shape. And perhaps maybe back in when the sea levels were lower, maybe that was the capital of the previous regime, the previous country, whatever that Pleistocene era country or something like that, civilization. Who knows? Why else would they consider this place so holy, so sacred, and so sacred enough to do a 40-year project of construction? Again, lots of questions. Pyramidic shapes were precisely at that time coming to be regarded as sacred just 500 miles southeast in ancient Europe. Again, I mentioned this. The first signs of Egyptian influence on nearby Crete as well. Pyramid shapes were associated with the god of creation Atum. This is in Egypt. He is believed to inhabit a pyramid-shaped rock, also known as a pyramidion, symbolizing the mythical primordial mound. Much of like in the book of Genesis, they talk something like this, rose out of a chaotic sea at the time of creation. So again, this creation myth is it's ubiquitous everywhere. Sorry, I'm redundant. I'm being redundantly redundant there. Pyramidic stone symbolized the sacred place where the first rays of the sun illuminated the primordial mound at the time of creation. Again, the shape of the pyramidion symbolized the slanting rays of the sun as they descended from the sky to earth. And then when you take into account the Dead Sea Scrolls and some of the tablets from Mesopotamia that Zechariah Sitchin was famous for. Not saying that he was right or anything, and a lot of people dispute his work, but if you just consider a lot of those ideas, it's very interesting. It's very compelling to even just read and look further into. Again, Mesopotamians and others had similar primordial mound rising out of the watery chaos. Dyscalio rising out of the sea symbolizes some Cycladic version of those wider sacred cosmological concepts. So what did the Cyclades, what was their relationship with everybody else here, with all these other civilizations? There must have been something, right? Can we agree that there was something going on? Let me know in the comments. Certainly the main concentration of sacred mountains in Crete are in an area directly associated with what appears to have been early Bronze Age colonizers from the Cycladic islands. So they're saying that the Cycladic people came to Crete, and then they brought with them their culture and all that stuff, their pottery, whatever it is, and then they went to the mainland from there. Very interesting. And that's because the Cretan mountains, sacred mountains, and mountaintop religious sanctuaries appear to precede the eventual emergence of the Greek mainland of Mount Olympus. So again, you see this common thread. The locations change, but the common traditions still, and the common message still persists. So again, that's very, very suggestive of some sort of ongoing canon, some cultural canon or something. Otherwise, why else would it still survive? So again, they found a bunch of other stuff there too. They found 1,500 imported stone discs that weren't from the Cyclades, 700 imported white pebbles, also not from that area. They think that they were religious offerings for the spirit or deity associated with the mini mountain. So they could have been visitors, pilgrims from other parts of the world, came there, and you know, for safe passage, whatever it could have been, to pay respect to the people as travelers themselves, to pay respect to the gods of that region. The possibilities are numerous. There are 36 small complete marble statues unearthed on Dyscalio, evidence of a very substantial number of copper daggers, spearhead axes, and other tools manufactured on the sacred islet. Again, there's a lot of questions here, a lot of stuff that they found that, again, if you stay posted on this, more likely than not, there's going to be a steady stream of information, of relevant information that'll help us add to the resolution of this snapshot in history here. Early Bronze Age pilgrims deposited more than 1,000 ritually broken religious marble figurines. Blades, other tools near the deposition site, manufactured near the deposition site, imported from the Cycladic island of Milos. Perhaps Dyscalio was considered so sacred that ordinary pilgrims could not even set foot on it and had to leave their offerings near the Kyros end of the causeway, presumably to the deity to collect later. So let me know what you guys think about this, guys. Greek history is very interesting because, again, they're among the earliest advanced group of people that we know about, and it's exciting to see all of this stuff coming to light. And again, when you look at the timeline, modern academia has been around a fraction of the time that ancient Greeks have been around. So what I'm trying to say is that the time that we've spent looking for this stuff pales in comparison to the time they had to establish their culture, their civilization, and to spread throughout this region and probably other regions as well. How this, again, it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Thank you to all the commenters. I got a shout out to the hockey player. I'm just going to assume he's a hockey player, Pavel Datsyuk. The guy from the Detroit Red Wings. There's a commenter with his name. Shout out to that guy. He supported Grimerica. He's commented on some of their stuff. I encourage you all to do that. Check out Grimerica. Check out Graham Hancock's work. Check out Martin Sweatman's work. He's great too. Yeah, so just let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you guys later.